Yeah, to be
Mhm.
able to actually do a podcast at an interview setting is humbling.
Yeah, I felt the same way too when he told me that you were interested. I was like, what? Somebody's interested on being on my podcast?
I remember when it hit midnight. I didn't expect myself to be alone. I just wanted us to spend some time. And I remember when you called my phone. I remember when the nights were dark. You were by my side, but then you left me alone. I didn't know it would be so hard to live without you, 'cause now I feel cold.
This is Rhea, and this is Just the Who of Us, where we talk about a range of topics including life events, current events, spirituality, entertainment, family relationships, as well as answering listener questions and more.
On this episode, we have who is musically known as BeastModeBart, known by his friends as Bart. Welcome to my podcast. I'm really excited to have you on here to,
Yeah, thank you for having me on here.
yeah, definitely. How long have you been in music?
So this is actually my first year doing it like on Spotify and like doing it professionally, basically.
Okay. What interested you in putting your music out yourself on these platforms like Spotify?
So I've been, I guess, rapping or making music since like middle school, but before doing it professionally, I would like post my songs on SoundCloud and whatnot. And I back in middle school, it was like something that me and a couple other guys would just kind of do and like mess around. But
Mhm.
I think with me, I have never had like the opportunity to I because I use Apple Music all the time on my phone and
Uh-huh.
I've used Spotify here and there, but not a whole lot. But with being able to post it on bigger platforms like Spotify and all that, I'm able to reach more people than just posting it on one platform or just like YouTube or whatever. Even though I still post on my YouTube channel and
Mhm.
I'm still trying to grow that. But I think with having the opportunity to post it on platforms that I use, it's a cool opportunity because I can reach other people and I can reach people like on a global status. So it's not just people that see my Snapchat and see my YouTube channel and whatnot. It's people that, maybe go on Spotify and they're trying to look for someone new and then they see
Yeah.
me hopefully and that's ultimately what I see in it. That's the opportunity I see.
Okay. Nice. So we're gonna get to know a little bit about you personally, and then we'll talk about your kind of journey. Where are you
Okay.
from?
So I come from Evansville, Indiana, which
Okay.
some people may hear me say that and they're like, "What is that? Where's that at on the map?" Of course, Indiana, and then like Evansville is the city it's on the border between Indiana and Kentucky.
Okay.
So getting to Kentucky is like a 20-minute drive. So we actually come across a lot of like Southern people from Kentucky in my city. But it's like a whole mixture of different cultures and different backgrounds. It's not like as diverse as maybe the bigger cities like LA or New York City or any like in Florida or whatever. But I'd say for the most part, it's a pretty like laid back city. Like you could I've met people that have come from Florida and they move here, or they come from New York City and they move here, and they say that like here is a lot more slowed down and chill compared to
Uh-huh.
those like bigger cities. Because if you like try to live in Florida or somewhere bigger like that, they will like it's a lot more fast paced living and it's
Okay.
a lot more just like on the ball or whatever. But here is a lot more slower and it's like a lot of people enjoy the fact that it's a lot slower because it gives people an opportunity to kind of just live, but also I don't know if that sounds like cliche, but it gives people an opportunity to just kind of get to know each other. And
Mhm.
I'd say for like our city, we definitely have people that try to know each other personally, which is something that people from bigger cities aren't used to
Yeah.
because there's so many people living there that it's hard to do that. But in our city where it's a lot smaller, we have an opportunity where we can know everyone here, not just on a acquaintance level, but you can actually, have connections here and get to know people and you can develop a lot of relationships here.
Okay. So that kind of answers a little bit of my next question. How does where you're from fit into and kind of affect your artistic work?
Yeah. So I'd say for me, The most common thing I get is that, and I don't know, it's weird because some people hear it and some people don't. But a lot of people ask me where I'm from because, and they assume that I'm from Kentucky or Texas or Florida because I
Uh-huh.
because and people say that because they hear that I have a Southern accent,
Uh-huh.
or and to like some people it's super strong, and to other people it's not even, they don't even hear it.
Yeah.
So it's weird, but no, I think that's what mostly affects it, is that if you listen especially to my older music, like I've tried to practice now trying to with how I pronounce words or how I enunciate, that
Right.
there's not like there's no accent. But if you listen to my older stuff, you could probably hear an accent like here and there,
Uh-huh.
uh, with just like my delivery and whatnot. And now that's not on purpose. It's just that's when I started, that's what people noticed.
Right.
So that so then I have to like practice how to like not do that basically.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes against like me because I was born, like how I was talking and whatnot, is it was just normal to me because that's just I no one had ever said it to me. I'd say probably since like in middle school is when it really started, when people were noticing it. But when I was growing up and whatnot, I never like thought I had some sort of accent or whatnot.
Yeah.
But
It's not just
it
somebody
makes sense.
outside points it out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It makes sense now because my mom's side of the family is like super country. So if you talk to my mom or you talk to anyone on her side of the family, they're gonna have like a super strong Southern accent,
Mhm.
because they came from a country home. Like my grandparents, they have like a farm out there and whatnot. But so I guess I have like a country background, but I'm not myself. I don't consider myself country. So I think that's pretty much how my where I live at affects my music, and also like the fact that I'm living somewhere smaller,
Mhm.
it affects like what how I reach people, because if I was living in like a much bigger city, uh promotion as far as like word of mouth would be easier because there's so many people to talk to. But where I
Right.
have where I'm at now, it's like you don't really have. I mean, you have rap in my city, but it's not like super popular.
Uh,
We mainly have like either a lot of people that listen to rock or country people, but you definitely have like the ghetto, like the hood and all that. Like
uh-huh.
we still have all that here. It's just different. It's not the same as like Florida or any of these other bigger cities.
Right. Yeah. I understand that. Where do you find musical inspiration? I could
So
like writing or anything.
yeah, so I've definitely gotten better at it since I started, because when I used to, because I write most of my songs,
Okay.
like I don't try to brag like, oh, I freestyle most of my stuff, like I
Yeah.
I pretty much write all of my stuff.
Yeah.
So when I first started, that was something that I had to learn for myself, is like what do I write about, what do I make songs about. So I think a lot of my inspiration, and Joker has talked about it with me before, but a lot of my inspiration comes from my past and stories that I have in my life, and
Mhm.
also just other people, what I've basically things that happen here. That's where I get a lot of my inspiration from. But as far as like my motives and what are my goals for my music, I think in middle school I didn't really know what my motive was, but I think now I'm pretty much able to say that my motive is it's different from everyone else, because you might have certain musicians that have motives that like they want to be a street rapper, they want to
Right.
uh, show that they're really about that, But I think that for me, my motive is to ultimately make music that people can relate to.
Mhm.
And also with my music, I try to make it secular, because I personally do come from a religious background, but I
Okay.
don't try to push that into my music, because I want
Okay.
my music to be songs that everyone can relate to, not just Christians, not just Muslims, or it's like everyone, anyone can listen to it. And that's the same reason for because I've had people ask me why my songs don't have like any like cussing or anything like that.
Uh-huh.
And I think
Yeah, I did
like
notice that. Yeah.
for me, it's just because for me, I want my music to be songs that anyone can listen to, like all types of age groups, you know.
Okay.
So people have asked me about that and whatnot, but for me, it's like I've always thought that I've never had to cuss to get my point across in any of my
Right.
songs. You know, yeah, I can still get my message across. I personally like. I don't have a problem with anyone else doing it because I'll have features that might might cuss or whatever, but it's like
Uh-huh.
that's whatever they want to do. But as far
Right.
as me, my individual decision, I just choose to, even if I cuss a little bit in my personal life, I just try to make my music. I guess I don't know if it sounds corny, but professional. You know,
Yeah,
like I
no,
just
I
try
get it.
to make it to where anyone can listen to it, and that's something that Joker pointed out to me is that anyone can listen to it. So that helps with reaching out to different audiences. Is that I can reach out to people that are like senior citizens, and I can
Uh-huh.
also reach out to little kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so that kind of remind me of NF
Yeah.
because yeah, so I mean you can and I can have like a potty mouth at times. So I'm not gonna sit
Yeah.
here and be like, well, you don't have to use curse words to get your
I
point across.
definitely
But
can. I definitely can. Yeah, I have a potty mouth too sometimes. Don't tell my mom. I hope she's not
right.
listening to this.
But it is possible. It's possible to make clean, relatable music and it be good. It be
Yeah,
things that people want to listen to. You can relate
yeah,
to it, and it doesn't have to be
yeah.
dirty or inappropriate or whatnot. Like if my kid walks into the room, I don't have to turn it off. It's okay.
Right. Yeah, yeah. That's exactly what I thought about. It's like, and I thought about like as a little kid too. You
Mhm.
always had that couple of songs that you've always wanted to listen to, but you make sure your parents aren't in the room because there's too much.
Right.
I'm 8 years old and I'm listening to Eminem or whatever, and but I don't let
Uh-huh.
my mom see me do that because she's gonna be like, "Turn that music off!
Right.
You're too young for that," you know.
Right.
So
and
that's
and
something I've definitely thought about.
okay, all right. Who is or are your biggest artistic influences?
So I think for me personally, I have, of course, like rap influences, but I also
Mhm.
have a little bit of rock too. Not in the sense that I'm screaming when I rap or whatever.
Right.
I listen to it. I don't know if you know who Breaking Benjamin is, but I listen to them. I've listened
Okay.
to them since middle school, and they're probably one of my influences just because like how they're able to like tell a story or whatnot.
Mhm.
But as far as my rap influences, I'd say Lil Skies for sure because he's one of my favorites and one of the first ones I listened to. And then NF a little bit because NF is he was one of the first rappers I started listening to in middle school.
Uh-huh.
And I listened to his older stuff and I think his newer stuff is so much better now. But
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But it's like again, everyone starts somewhere. You know, I might
Yeah.
look at my music, 5 years from now, and be like, "Oh man, I didn't sound very good in the beginning," you know.
Yeah, but
But
it's
it's
just one
just
of those things that comes with experience. So.
yeah, 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 for sure. And then I honestly, I mean, this might not be a shock, but I'd say Eminem was really the first rapper I started listening to.
Mhm.
It was Eminem, and then NF, and then Lil Skies, and then I have a friend at work that really got me into Travis Scott, if you know who that
Okay.
is.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah. So I listen to his like Travis Scott stuff and like how he's able to like put music together and whatnot. It's just like he probably has more talent in his pinky than I have in my whole body, you know? So yeah, those are probably my biggest influences for sure.
Okay. And so I noticed you said that your influence isn't just rap, and I've heard various people say that different types of artists, whether it be rap, R&B,
Mhm.
rock,
Yeah.
there's most people don't just have influence just from the genre that they like to use,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's better realistically because I primarily listen to old school R&B. I listen to some like poppy songs because I have teenage girls and I hear it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not an artist, but if I were, I feel like I would need to kind of gather inspiration from various places and not
Hmm.
just what I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite time of the day to create, and do you have a creative routine that you have to follow?
So For me, I'd say I don't really have a routine. It's just kind of spontaneous for me whenever I want to write a song or decide to record. I do like, I might plan it out. Okay, tomorrow I'm going to record and then I'm going to, just kind of chill the next
Hmm.
day. But I'd say as far as the time of the day, I think I feel most productive during like right now during the day when it's like
Okay.
11 or 12 o'clock, whatever. But I think there's also been a couple of times where I'll write songs at midnight or later than that or earlier than that. And
Hmm.
that's not really on purpose. It's just however I feel in the moment. If
Uh-huh.
I feel like you said, inspiration from something, or I feel like I'm in a mood, in a sad mood and I'm like writing something really depressing, but that's not how I usually am, but that's how I feel in the
Yeah.
moment. So I gotta,
Yeah.
but that's kind of how it is for me. It's like all spontaneous. It's not really like I don't. I mean, I do try to organize my plans maybe like throughout the day or throughout the week, just because it helps me feel more comfortable. Like I'm not stressed out because I'm trying to figure out what to do all the time.
Yeah.
And I never ask my parents what to do or what should I do today because they're gonna make me do all the chores in the house. So I don't know if Joker's ever done this, but if I tell my mom, "Hey, I don't know what to do today," she'll be like, "Okay, you can clean the bathrooms today, or
I
you
could
can,
definitely find you something to do.
yeah, you can take out the trash today."
Yeah, or you can clean up
That's what
that
I have to
room
do most of
or
the time. But most of the time, every day, I'll have to take out the trash, and
uh-huh.
yeah, that's not even. She'll just like see me playing whatever game I'm playing, and then she'll be like, "Are you busy right now?" And I know in that moment I got to take the trash out,
Uh-huh.
or I gotta put away the dishes that are clean now or whatever.
Yeah, we have like telltale signs. I'll just go in his room and just kind of look around with this like look, and then next thing I know, he's usually cleaning his room.
I could totally see that because he's told me about his
uh,
room gets dirty a lot. Yeah, he's told me about that.
oh,
He
okay.
he's told me like specifically if food gets on the floor, that's a big
Oh
issue
yeah, God, I
because
hate
he's
that
got
too.
carpet floors. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes, and but I'm not a fan of carpet realistically though. I know it's more comfortable and blah 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 whatever, but
I'm not a fan of carpet. I've grown up
yeah,
with tile my whole life. It's just fine.
yeah,
It yeah. We
I
have
would
carpet
rather
upstairs.
yeah.
If I was to walk out, we would have carpet. But in my room, I have tile. Downstairs, we all
Hmm.
have tile floors. So I mean, it. I don't think it makes
It's
no
easier
difference.
to
I think
clean.
carpet is. It's just harder to maintain.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah, I can't like just sweep and mop the carpet and be done. Like
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
process.
yeah, yeah. That's how
um,
I feel.
describe how art, in your opinion, is important to society.
So I think with art in particular, it's different now than what it used to be because I think in society now, art has definitely changed, and as far as people's approach and whatnot, and it
Uh-huh.
might be driven by different things, but I think ultimately people don't realize it, but we art is around us all the time. Whether
Yeah.
it's on a billboard or on social media or whatever we do, it's around us all the time. So I think it's definitely important to society when there's art and there's something that people connect to,
Hmm.
and that helps someone with, I guess, mentally what they're going through. And I think also with art, it can be important from a history perspective because we can look back and see maybe
Yeah.
the error of our ways, but also see what was good and how we can apply that today.
Right.
Not trying to get political, but we've seen like the statues and whatnot, and people are
Uh-huh.
trying to like tear those down. And
Hmm.
personally, I don't think we should tear the statues down because that's art,
Hmm.
and that's history that we have in this country. And so with that art, it's important that it's preserved so that people can see that whether it's good or not, people can interpret to themselves that, oh, this wasn't very good, or oh, this is pretty good. This is something that we should remember.
Okay. So it's kind of like just because we don't like it and just because we've grown from it doesn't mean it still didn't happen.
Yeah, even if it's something like with art, if even if we don't like it, I think we should still keep it,
Uh-huh.
just for a history perspective. But I think as far as like modern art, I think for me, something that I kind of miss is that I feel like if you watch old movies,
Hmm.
it's like art, something that's presented to you, and then you interpret for yourself what the message is or the moral of
Gotcha.
the story. Whereas you watch movies now, and it's like they tell you what the moral of the story
Uh-huh.
is, and they tell you what you're supposed to think, and it's like
Yeah.
that's not, that's not how it used to be. And now
Yeah.
it's like they're just telling you what the message is, and it's like, but wait, that's personally kind of what I miss in a little bit of art is that art, I feel like it used to make you just think about something and now it's telling you what you're supposed to think,
Hmm.
a little bit. So I think something for me, something that I could challenge myself to do is try to do that with my music, is try to just make people think and not really tell them what they're supposed to think or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah. 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 Definitely. Definitely art, individual artistic expression or individual artistic interpretation is
Yeah.
important to you as an artist too.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Does art in general, whether it be books, whether it be paintings, whether it be music, just art in general, help you in other areas of your life and how?
It definitely does. I think with reading certain books that I've read before, it helps me understand certain things that I didn't understand before, and
Hmm.
that can definitely affect my music. I hate to admit it, but I haven't really read a long book in a long time because I don't really read unless school makes me. So
Commonly, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I'd say definitely when I was forced to read certain books, and so I was like, okay, I'll read this book. I didn't know ahead of time this was going to make me change how I think about something. And then I
Yeah.
read the whole book and I'm like, wow, this completely changed my perspective about something.
Uh-huh.
So I think with books in particular, books are kind of, they're not as pushed out there as they usually like as they used to be, because now we
Hmm.
just have social media and whatever. And
Yeah.
if you're watching TikTok 3 or 4 hours a day, you're not going to care about reading a book or whatever, because
Yeah.
you want to watch TikTok, you want to see what the latest trend is.
Hmm.
But I think if we're being honest with ourselves, I think that books have a much longer lasting impact on people's lives than just a new TikTok trend or something that they see on Snapchat or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a bigger truths to be found in books than just things that we see on social media, even though truth can still be spread out on social media as well. It's just depending on
Yeah.
how people use it.
And social media, though, as helpful as certain things can be, is more so opinionated than
Yeah,
fact based most of the time, most of the time. And I know for myself, I do a lot of research based reading. And so
yeah,
for me, I'm reading things, and that's just something I got used to in college was evidence based research. So anything that
yeah,
I do, I'm looking for evidence. I'm looking for facts. And you're not always going to get that from books. You could read someone's autobiography. You could read my autobiography, and that's based on my perspective and my truths and and my thoughts and everything. I'm not saying every book you read is factual, and but
yeah,
when you're researching or when you're reading to educate yourself, you're looking for things that are fact based and research based, as opposed to if you're looking for information on the internet, you're most of the time not really paying attention to whether it's factual. It's just especially like TikTok. So many anybody. I see all kinds of people on there who are in the medical field and things like that, and they're talking about this and that. I don't really know if you are a professional. I'm just going off the fact that you're wearing scrubs and you sound like you know what you're talking about. And that's much easier to do than kind of like the older forms of going for information.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, I have a kind of a two-part question for
Okay.
you specifically with your musical journey.
Okay.
And I know you said you're only like a year in, so you don't have like 10 years of experience. You're still kind of
Right.
new.
Yeah.
And you're pretty young too. By what terms do you measure success?
So personally, there's a couple of different ways that I could measure my success as far as like a musician. But
Mhm.
I think obviously you could look at like statistics that I have as far as like how many streams I've gotten and whatnot, and you could
Mhm.
see how much success there is in that. You have and then of course you go even further and see my financial success with it. I just said financial, so you see that you heard that accent a little bit, but so yeah,
No,
but
oh. I'm
back to what
sorry.
I was saying. There's different ways of measuring success. Like I think there's material and there's also financial, whatever. But I think ultimately what it comes down to with your success, I think one of the most important things as a musician is leaving a legacy for sure.
Yeah.
Leaving something that people remember and not just saying something. I'll use a I'm not trying to call anyone out specifically, but I'll use like Jack Harlow as an example, okay? And you
Hmm.
could really use a lot of people, but for him right now, he's really popping
Hmm.
and he's really mainstream because girls and guys all over him. You got a lot of people that are hating on him because he has that Justin Bieber effect. Justin
Uh-huh.
Bieber, Jack Harlow stealing all the girls from all the people, so we're getting mad at him. But I think like with his music, I think what he'll have to come across is for me, even with someone like Justin Bieber, he's got a legacy just because he's been in making music for so long. But I
Hmm.
think with someone that their music, their message is sexual or there's that appeal, I feel like it's not that kind of stuff is not really long lasting because you could find an attractive person tomorrow that just
Hmm.
blows up and then those other people are forgotten about.
Yeah.
You hear about people that are attracted to Nicki Minaj or Megan Thee Stallion or Cardi B all the time, but you
Hmm.
don't hear people talking about Destiny's Child anymore or Salt and Pepper anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So because
Well,
they're
me, but
old
like.
now and yeah, yeah, and I only know about Salt and Pepper because of my mom. That's one of her
Uh-huh.
favorite group, but
Uh-huh.
and then you could go even. I'm sure you could go even further than that. You could say Elvis Presley. No one's talking about how attractive
Yeah.
Elvis Presley is anymore. So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
I think there's definitely that as far as like measuring success as far as your legacy. And then also I think there's personal success too, as
Hmm.
far as your success is how do you feel like you've grown as a musician or do you feel like you've grown as a person? And that's something that I ask myself sometimes is do I feel like I've grown? Or do I feel like I've just stayed in one spot the whole time and just kind of not really grown as much? And that just goes beyond music. That goes just with me personally, if I've matured or if I'm kind of just staying the same. So
Hmm.
that I think there's definitely a few ways to measure success, but that's kind of how I think of it.
Okay. What influenced that? Was that something that you were influenced by your parents on, or something you just kind of picked up throughout things that you've learned about the industry? What influenced that measure of success to you?
I feel like for me, my parents have definitely taught me that no matter what, you got to have good ethics. You got to have accountability for yourself as far as what people see and what people know about you.
Hmm.
Because you don't want to be famous and then people find out about all your dirty laundry and then
Yeah.
you're some bad person that no one wants to be around.
Yeah.
So I think that's something my parents have definitely taught me. And also just like with me being a Christian, that's something that I've definitely learned through church and whatnot too. But I
Hmm.
think even with church, it really just comes down to what your parents teach you because your lessons that you learn when you do something wrong and you get punished or get your phone taken, it's in
Hmm.
those moments that you really learn like what's good and bad. I'm just thankful to have parents that have taught me all that because I know that I'm kind of in a minority now. And I hate to say that, but I feel like I'm in a minority where I have parents that have taught me good lessons, but I feel like now that's not as common. So
Hmm.
I've definitely I'm thankful for that. But yeah, I think for sure my parents have taught me everything I'm like telling you about leaving a legacy.
Uh-huh.
That's all coming from like my mom and dad, pretty much. So
Okay. Nice. And so, how far are you, before I ask this next question, how far are you into the business aspect of your musical career? Because, again, I know you're pretty early in,
yeah,
but you've made the decision, okay, I started on SoundCloud. Now I'm going to put myself out on Spotify and things like that.
yeah. So I think with that, I think I've come a long way since I first started. I'm already making big success and it's only my first year. So that's definitely a good sign. I was hoping I'd get an interview sometimes and this here we are. So
Hey, here you are.
yeah. So I mean this is the first one, hopefully the first of many, you know.
Yeah.
But no, I think that I'm definitely my dad he's a businessman, so I have him
Mhm.
that kind of helps me with that stuff.
Good.
And I think that, yeah, for sure. I think with my success, I personally I couldn't do it as a full time job yet. You know, I'm not at that
Hmm.
point. But of course, that's the hope that I can turn this into full time. But that's not where I'm at now. So, and that might take quite a while. You know, but that's something that I'm willing to chase after, I guess, or that's something that I'm willing to work for.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think as far I've definitely like if you asked me if I'm making being successful right I would already tell you that I'm already successful even if it's small little stuff,
Yeah.
it's still baby steps into something a lot bigger,
Hmm.
And so that I'd say, yeah, I mean, no matter what, I try to have a positive attitude and try to just stay motivated. But it definitely helps when I see that growth with my streams. It definitely helps. And I'll even like post, like, I'm sure, I don't know if Joker's ever shown you the what I post or not, but I post it on my Snapchat occasionally here and there, my story, and I'll post it there just to unintentionally start my own hype train. Because if you have someone that's making music and they only get like a couple views on their YouTube,
Hmm.
or only have a couple streams, it's like, I don't know if I really want to stick with this guy or not. But if you then but as soon as you make it big, I think even Eminem has said it before, like, as soon as he got famous, he has like 80 cousins now, or whatever.
Right, right.
He has all, hey man, we're family, you knew that, like.
Right.
And I think with that, for me, I know that I have a lot of genuine people that are friends with me and support
That's
me,
good. That's
and
important.
been there ever since before music. So that I'm not worried about that necessarily. That's one of those things, I'll cross that bridge when I get there. I think ultimately I just try to stay motivated no matter what. Just try to
Hmm.
have a good attitude, because if I just stay motivated and stay focused, then I'm not gonna be worried about certain things like that. If I don't have as much streams as this guy, or if I don't
Right.
have as many Instagram followers as this guy, I've learned that for me, if I try to compare myself to other people or to live up to someone else's success, then it brings me down mentally, because I feel I'm not doing as good. So therefore, I must be trash, or
Right, right.
I must be mid, as kids say these days. As we say these days,
I was
I
like,
must
what
be
does that
mid.
mean?
Yeah, you'll have to ask Joker about like what when people say that's mid. Ask him what that means.
Is that like mediocre?
Yeah, mediocre
Okay,
basically.
guys.
If I play a song and I say that's mid, that's mediocre basically,
Okay,
or it's like average.
gotcha.
But I just say it because it's funny.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to kind of like piggyback on, and so you're talking about not comparing yourself. And my husband, when I first started doing this, I was like, okay, I'm not really, mind you, I'm only on episode 5, and I already have someone who reached out to me and was like, hey, I'm interested in doing it, having you interview me.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
this right here at episode 5 is like phenomenal, because
Hmm.
just for that alone, like someone is interested in being my podcast,
Yeah,
But in
yeah,
the very beginning, kind of getting into this, and I have a couple of businesses that I've already started. This was not what I saw myself doing.
yeah,
And it's kind of like picked up a little bit faster than I thought it would. But I would make a comment to him like, okay, well, only a couple people listened to this episode, and he was like, there are people who don't even get any kind of notice until they're like 100 episodes in.
yeah,
You might have to put out an album or two before you really take off, and now you have 4 and 5 albums, and people are like, oh, like this guy's really good. We didn't even know anything about him
yeah,
2-3 albums ago. So
yeah,
it's important, really, especially being young and being just kind of starting out, that it's important that you recognize that, hey, this might not do, I'm not super active on social media. I'm trying to force myself to get there, just because I know advertising
right.
for the podcast and things like that. Social media is where I need to be advertising.
Yeah, and you're
But
not alone with that, because I try to be active on TikTok and it's
uh-huh.
hard. But yeah, I try to force myself to, because like people, you have all kinds of people that say, oh, if you're trying to get your music out there, promote it on TikTok, man. It's like, well, I
Yeah.
can't dance for one, and
Right.
two, it's like, I don't really like, I don't care for TikTok. It's whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But I only did it
Yeah.
because my friend was really on my back about it, and he was like
Uh-huh.
telling me, like, you need to do this. There's no reason that you can't do this. I'm like, you know what? You're right. You're right. I was getting called out, and in the moment I couldn't say
Uh-huh.
anything, because
Yeah.
so I have friends that are really honest with me, and I'm, even though some things like they say, it may hurt in the moment, some things I really need to hear.
Yeah, you need people who are going to be
Because
honest with you.
it helps me. But
Yeah.
other stuff, you might have friends that, I hate to say it because it's used, the word fake is used all the time. But y'all have people that you ask them their opinion about something, and they're just like a yes man. You
Hmm.
know, it's like,
Yeah.
well, you don't really need a yes man all the
Right.
time. It's
Yeah.
only when you're down and you need someone to hype you up, then you need
Yeah.
like a yes man. But you don't, if you're just honestly asking for criticism, you don't need a yes man.
Yeah. I need
So
to bring me back to peace, man, not everything is goods man. Like, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
need
yeah,
somebody to
yeah.
tell me everything. Oh yeah, it's good all the time. Give me like
Yeah,
honest feedback.
because nowadays you could just buy bots that'll go on your
Hmm.
Instagram and be like, "Oh, this is good." So,
Yeah.
but it's like if you have real people that tell you this, or that could be better.
Yeah.
I also think with that it should also be like constructive. Unfortunately, these days sometimes it comes across hate, even
Hmm.
if people aren't trying to do that. If you see it all the time on Instagram, unfortunately, it's become a little bit toxic these days. But you'll have people that just go and comment and say, "Oh, this isn't good. This is that." But it's rare that you have someone say something's not good and it's actually constructive and it's something that's actually you can look at it and you're like, "Oh, okay. He's telling
Hmm.
me something that I could actually look at instead of just saying this is all garbage, this it's at least explain to me why you feel that way."
Right. Yeah.
And if you can't explain it, then I can't listen to you.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to ask you kind of a little bit like deeper questions, I guess.
Okay.
Is there any point in your career where you would see yourself giving it up? Is
Yeah, that's
there
really deep.
I want people to get to know you and not just get to know, okay, well, like this is what sounds good because this is what I'm trying to promote. I want to promote myself. People
Yeah.
also want to hear the not so flattering things because most people don't talk about that stuff. And that really puts you kind of in a different place than everybody else because you're willing to be honest about not just the good, fancy stuff.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think that for me in those type of moments, I'm always going to try to find a solution. But really, I think what it comes down to with music is that it can be expensive to make sometimes, especially like depending on the type of quality you're trying to put out. It can be really expensive. And fortunately, I'm in a position where I don't have to worry about that. But I think that for me, the only deal breaker I would ever have is that I'd be like, you know what, guys, I want to keep doing this, but I got a family to feed. I got a house I got lights to keep on. I can't
Yeah.
I'm losing more money than I'm actually making. So
Right.
this is something I'm going to have to leave behind. But I think for me, in that type of situation, I try to find a cheaper alternative than
Hmm.
what I'm doing. If I can't, obviously, if there is no cheaper alternative, then I'd have to quit. Yeah, I'd say like for me, that's the only reason I'd ever stop. Because
Yeah.
and the crazy thing is, I never really knew if I wanted to do this as a career or not until I pretty much really last year, honestly, because in middle school, I'd go back and forth on it. I'd have like phases, and then I'd say in my darkest moments that I've had in my career so far, obviously not real, but I've thought about like just calling it quits with my career because there was one point where I was promoting a video on Instagram like heavily and it got a
Hmm.
lot of views and there were also a lot of negative comments. And of course, I don't know if Joker ever told you about any of that was happening, but he would try to like he'd basically make fun of it and he'll
Yes.
go in and roast people and that that's his thing. I think for me, that was probably the darkest period of my career
Mhm.
was calling it quits when I had a lot of hate comments and a lot of people trying to bring me down. I look back now and laugh at it, but back then
Yeah.
I was like really sad about it. I had to talk to people about it. And I think for me, if there was, of course I'm new, so I don't really feel like giving advice, but if there was advice I had to give, it
Yeah.
would be talk to friends you have and make sure that you communicate with them, like not just with music, but just how you feel, because that's ultimately how I get through situations is like people get caught up in a loop and they don't know how to get out of depression. But for
Yeah.
me, how I got out of my anxiety and moments of depression was I had to just talk to people and just recognize that, certain things like that with hate comments and whatnot, it just wasn't that big of a deal to me. I could see that and I could ponder on it for a long time and think about it and overthink. And that's an issue that I have in particular is overthinking about stuff. So I could just think about it all the time, or I could look at it and just ignore it, just move on from it and just stay focused. I've learned that if I do that, that's a lot more helpful to me than trying to respond to people or trying to give them attention. Because sometimes that's ultimately all they want. It's just attention. They
Right.
just want to fight with someone. They just want to be a keyboard warrior. They
Yeah.
like go in guns blazing on someone. But that's something that I think once I got over that hump mentally, that was a huge boost for me in my career because now I'm at a point where someone could post a hate comment on my thing. I don't even care about it because it's like I know that I have real fans and real people that genuinely like my music. If I'm just focused on fans and supporting people around me and they support me, as long as I'm focused on all that, if a random person comes in and comment, that's not going to affect me because I don't know them. So
Right.
it sounds mean, but I don't really care for them. You know what I mean?
But no, I think that's a great way to look at it. And on remembering too that art is subjective, and that
Yeah.
goes for music or podcasting or anything. It's important to realize and remember art is subjective, and not everybody's gonna like everything you do, and that's
Yeah.
fine. But you just rely on the
Yeah.
support of the people who do
Yeah.
support you and give you that encouragement. You really can't pay attention to anything else.
Yeah.
Okay, I have two more questions.
Okay.
My last kind of deep one, I guess. What values do you consider when making hard career decisions? And if you haven't had to make hard career decisions, somebody wants to sign you. Are they really
Yeah.
Are they an ethical choice? Could they make you a lot of money but not have great
Yeah.
morals?
Yeah.
What values would you consider?
Well, I'd say as far as like my values, because I'm a Christian, I'm gonna put God first,
Right.
But second to that, I'd put family first. So if there's
Mhm.
gonna be a decision that I make that's gonna like if there's someone offering something to me and it's
Mhm.
gonna drive me away from my personal beliefs or it's gonna drive me away from my family or hurt my family in a way, obviously I'm gonna stay away from that because that's not going to be good for me in the long term. And then I'd say for me personally, as far as like a record label, I
Mhm.
feel like I'm really going to try to be an independent artist until I
Yeah.
literally can't be independent anymore. It
Yeah.
gets too hard. I'm stressed out all the time. I'm taking Zoloft, but it's not helping.
Right.
Like
Right.
if I'm on the point where I am depressed every day, then I'll consider signing to a record label. But
Mhm.
other than that, the radio is not going to like me saying this. I feel like with record labels, I've done my own research on it and I've studied it. And I feel like
Mhm.
they, especially like some of the major ones, they
Mhm.
try to drown you in debt
Yeah.
because they'll give you a contract that says, okay, we're going to give you $1 million this year. This is going to be your salary. And so you get that $1 million, but it's not actually cash. It's like a credit card. You get $1 million in debt.
Ah.
And
Okay.
basically, so you have that $1 million to spend on whatever you want, but then with your music, you have to make up that $1 million back to the record label and probably more so that they
Right.
can make money. You know what I mean? That's personally what I've studied and what I've learned. And of course, I've never looked at a record label contract before, so every record label is different. You definitely have
Yeah.
those record labels that are good and they genuinely care for their artists. I'll give you an example. Have you heard of the Young Thug and Gunna case?
I have.
Yeah, like
Sorry.
the
And
RICO charge.
he was actually telling me about it like a couple days ago. Yeah.
Yeah, the RICO. Yeah, so YSL, like there something that happened the other day was that Young Thug's record label CEO came and testified in court about charges that happened in 2015 and
Mhm.
it's 2022 now. What a lot of people are seeing is that this record label, they knew that these guys were doing all these things in 2015, but they didn't
Mhm.
care to try to stop them or try to
Right.
prevent all this from happening. But as soon as they get caught, as soon as they're facing life charges, oh, all of a sudden that's the end of the world.
Uh-huh.
Now and it's like the record label is the reason why they're sad is because they're realizing they can't make any more money off of those people anymore
Yeah.
because they're going to be in jail,
Yeah.
or it could be like that. That's something that I've thought of is okay. Do record labels care about their artists because they genuinely want to work with them and see them grow as a person, or are they just
Mhm.
trying to make money? And most of the time, they're just trying to make money. So it's
Yeah.
like, but that's understandable because it's a business.
It's a
So
business. Yeah.
unfortunately, what happens is some rappers will see a contract, and the first thing you read is the salary. So they'll see that
Mhm.
salary, and they'll be
They
like,
don't care
"Oh
about
man, this
anything
looks
else.
good. I'm just going to sign the paper
Uh-huh.
without reading all the other terms and agreements." And
Mhm.
then when they get screwed over, they're like, "What is this, man?" And it's like, well,
Mhm.
it's hard to blame the record label in those situations because the artist, it was their responsibility to read everything that was happening.
Right.
So yeah, for me, I've seen a lot of, I don't know if corrupt is the right word because I don't think they're like evil on purpose. I just think it's a business. So if your ultimate goal is to try to make money, those artists might not get treatment that they deserve, but ultimately they're just there to make money for those companies. So I think for me, being independent, for one, I think independent gives me an opportunity to show other people that you don't have to sign to a record label to be successful. And I could bring awareness to that. But also, I think with being independent, it would help me to make those decisions as far as my values. Because if I was
Right.
signed to a record label, in that case, my decision making would be a little bit more limited because I'd have to ultimately listen to whatever the record label is telling me to do, my manager and whatnot. But as far as
Right.
if it's all on me to do whatever, then that gives me a sense of power in a way that, okay, I can make decisions for myself. I don't have to have a boss. Ultimately, being an independent artist would be, I think it'd be a little bit fun because I've never not had a boss in my career before. I don't know if Joker's told you about my personal life of where I work at, but every place I've worked at, it's either been in fast food or I worked at like a truck wash for a month. But in all of those situations, I had a boss. So with me not having a boss, it'd be a cool opportunity for me. And in some
Yeah.
cases, that might be a little bit stressful because it's all on me. But that's why I'd have my family to support me and I'd have people that I could talk and I could build my own connections basically.
Yeah, that also gives you opportunity to learn more things yourself, to build
Yeah.
certain skills that you wouldn't be doing had you had someone managing you and
Yeah.
being kind of directed by a label. And now it's so much easier to do that.
Yeah.
You think back like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you couldn't, way before even like LimeWire, like you couldn't just put yourself out there like that
Yeah.
and be able to create your own career. But now you can. There's much more opportunity there. And then,
Yeah.
like I said, it gives you the ability to learn and to teach yourself how to do other things that involve your management, your business components, and things like that.
Yeah.
So this last question is more just kind of like a fun question, but however many years from now, when you are this highly successful artist, I want you to go back to this and be like, hey, that's another goal I accomplished. Okay.
Yeah.
Describe for me your dream project or collaboration, and why would you choose that project and or person?
So I have like two in particular,
Uh-huh.
but I don't know if you can include, like, can I include like people that are dead or alive?
Okay, you can do both. And I only say that for the purposes of like your future self. When you come
Yeah, yeah,
back and
yeah.
listen to the things you did in the beginning of your career and realize how much
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'd say like for anyone, like for people that have already passed away, I'd
Mhm.
say Juice World.
Okay.
Like I think for him, he had such a unique type of music. It was sad, but it was people who weren't even into sad rap could listen to
Mm-hmm.
it, and still relate
Yeah.
to it. But as far as realistic collaboration, people are still alive. I'd say for sure Lil Skies because that's my favorite rapper. To be able to meet him, make a song with him too would be very humbling experience for me. Honestly, like it sounds cliche, but I mean Drake, just because
Mm-hmm.
he's one of the biggest names. Collaborating with him, it'd be like one of those things you do it and you're like, yeah, I've made it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, I think those two, and then of course like Travis Scott. I think
Mhm.
collaborating with him, making a song with him would be like a learning experience in itself because he would do something that you've never seen before. It'd be like, whoa, I've never thought about doing something like that before,
Yeah.
or doing it in that way. So I think I'm going to say those three in particular, and I'll just leave it at that because I could go on and all day about all the NF and all these other people that
Yeah.
you know.
Uh-huh.
So like bring me back like those memories, and I'm probably gonna have more of those like after I graduate high school. Which speaking of, a little bit of a flex here, I'm going into my senior year, but I'm also going to be an early grad, so I'm going to graduate a semester early. So
Nice.
a little bit of a
Okay.
flex there.
Yeah.
Uh, and like Joker was even telling me, even at the speed that I'm going at, like on those last few days, to just walk around the school and take it in because that's probably going
Yeah.
to be the last time I ever see it. So that's like a deep thing that I've thought about doing is that I didn't do it this year because I'm a junior. So it's like, well, I'll just be back here over the summer anyway. So it's like, I'm not worried about that, but definitely that probably last 2 weeks of high school, I'm probably gonna just walk around and just take everything in. I might go into classrooms that I've never even been before and just like go there and look at everything.
That is I think that wraps up all my questions.
Okay.
If you can tell us where we can find you on the internet.
I'm on all platforms, of course. Beast Mode Bart on Apple
Mhm.
Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, all that. And then, of course, my YouTube channel, Beast Mode Bart. And then you can follow my Instagram at Beast Mode Bart 76.
Okay.
My TikTok is Beast Mode Bart. That's where you can find me.
Sounds good. If anyone has questions to be answered on our next episode, leave those in the comment and we will get back to you next week. See you.